Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. I'm joined by John Covelli today from the Hard Bop Messengers. I guess it was your baby originally, and it has grown into a multifaceted thing to say the least. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah, we ended up following each other on the Blue Sky, and I checked out some of what you did, and obviously I reached out. That's how this usually happens. So why don't we get into how it all started? I know Horace Silver is someone who's really important to you. So why don't we start with him and how the band came to be?
Sure, sure. Well, once again, thanks for having me. I love your show. Um, I've been playing in everybody else's band all through my career. And when I decided to start up my own group, I wanted to start a jazz group, and I wanted to be able to have, really top-notch musicians that could just play, uh, on the spot. I had to figure out, well, what songs would they know, but aren't tired of playing? As jazz musicians, there's a whole slew of standards that everybody gets sick of playing, right? Um, and I thought, well, I love Horace Silver music. Horace Silver, hard bop. It was really some stone cold shit, and really exciting for the listener to hear it. And I wanted to start a band that would play really, really, bopping stuff that was fun for the people to listen to, and maybe they'd even move around a little. And Horace Silver music has soul and gospel and funk and R&B and all this stuff in it. It's really exciting. And every musician that I would approach and say, "Hey, do you want to play in my band, Hard Bop Messengers?" They'd be like, "Oh my God, I love that stuff. I never get to play it." And so I was able to put, a band together made up of like all-star players who, like whoever I could get that night, they would at least know like 10 or 15 of these best songs that I wanted to play. So we just started playing gigs. It's hard to get five guys on a stage in St. Louis, that's not economically profitable or feasible. So it was still like once every other month I was able to get a gig doing this. And um, one of those shows I recorded and put on a shelf, of course, because I didn't think my playing was good. So I put it away in a drawer. And then we got that residency at the last hotel, and that kind of changed my life.
So was that recording Mining Silver?
Yes, I put that out a couple of years later. The drummer was in my kitchen, and he's like, "Whatever happened to that recording?" And I'm like, "I, it's it's on my hard drive." He's like, "Why haven't you put that out?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I don't have a good answer." Uh, he said, "Why don't you go back and listen to that again? Because I remember that being a pretty special night." And I was like, "Okay." So I went back and I listened, and I thought, wow, I've really learned a lesson here. The energy was really great, and that's what it's all about. And I've been searching for some sort of personal perfection that is just never,
Never
it's
gonna have it.
never, and
98%.
I don't think it should either. Like
Right.
now I know that it's not supposed to.
Right. I always say if you get it to 98%, you've done your job.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
That last 2% is gonna take 10 times as long and you're never gonna get it.
Yeah, and it's not worth it because the listener is not, they don't care so much about that.
Right, exactly, exactly. So you end up at the last hotel. Now, does the Wayne Shorter tribute that was at the Cigar Inn, is that same time, or where is that on my timeline? Am I going last hotel or am I going Wayne Shorter?
So the Wayne Shorter happened 10 years ago,
Oh,
and I put that in a drawer because I didn't think I sounded very good. And I just honestly I had
recurring theme. There's a recurring theme.
yeah, I know. A recurring theme, there's two of them, right? One is that I do something thematic. So that night, I decided I'm going to play all Wayne Shorter, a trio, right? Bass, drums, and trombone, playing all Wayne Shorter, right? Like it was the most difficult musical project I ever decided to take on because Wayne Shorter music is very harmonically complex. And in that evening, I really was able to explore the music without a piano player playing, and it gave me a new take on that music. And then I was able to do that trio show again that summer. But once again, I set it aside. I didn't think I sounded good, and I didn't think anybody would want to hear it. So it was again after we put out Mining Silver, I thought, well, what about the Wayne Shorter trio? That was great. So it's I'm reborn.
What do you? I guess in a trio, there's nothing to hide behind, huh? As being the
No,
lead
just
instrument.
yeah, just my trombone and the bass and the drums, and I had hired a guy to do the recording, so it's a beautiful recording. The sound quality is amazing. He really got great sounds out of the bass and the drums, and the trombone, and it's all, there's no effects, there's no editing, and it really is an amazing recording. And I'm thankful that you brought it up because I kind of forget it's out there, and I'm pretty proud of it. I get analytics from the streaming platforms,
Mhm.
and people are always streaming songs from that Wayne Shorter trio album, and it blows my mind. I don't know what I'd been waiting for.
Right, there you go. St. Louis is home of the blues, I guess, kind of. I mean, it was on the Mississippi. It got all the influences coming. There's this place, the Last Hotel, which I looked up a little bit. Fascinating to me. You want to give me this a little the story of the Last Hotel and then how you ended up as a residency there?
Yeah, it was really a special thing that happened. First of all, the hotel is in a building that was the International Shoe Company, and St. Louis was a really big economic force in the shoe business 100 years ago, and but that they eventually got bought, and were not in that building anymore. And a company went in there and started the Last Hotel. It's an interesting name for a hotel. Uh, and I was introduced to a guy. His name is Will Rogers, and he was running food and beverage at the hotel. And a mutual friend of ours, introduced us, and we were talking about jazz and St. Louis and downtown St. Louis in particular. And I said, well, when Just Jazz, that was a jazz club in downtown St. Louis, I said, Just Jazz left downtown and went uptown to the Grand Arts area. And there hasn't been jazz in downtown St. Louis since. And it's been a long, long time. And he said, well, let's do something about that. And I said, well, you can try, but unless it's a big group like a quintet, it's really not going to attract a lot of attention or have a lot of energy. You can have a lot of energy with the trio, but when you add the two horns, boom, you really got something. It's something, an experience, that people will remember. When they're downtown and they hear this hot music, they will remember it and want to come back. And he was like, let's do it. I'm sold. And so he did. We did it. We started playing every Friday night, and it was called the early show because it was from 6 to 8. And it was perfect because people would pop in, before they went to the hockey game or the baseball game or before they had dinner. The people that were staying at the hotel would meet in the lobby for a drink, and they'd hear us playing before they go out to do their thing. And so we were like the place where people would tee up, and we got to play every Friday night. And as a quintet, we played all this really cool hard bop music. And I just had a ball. I'd never had a residency before in my life. And, we got to play every week. And I started to be able to play without worrying about whether this is the last time I get to play jazz or not, because I knew I was going to be able to play next week. And if it doesn't come perfectly, it's okay, right? And it changed my life. It changed the way I played music. And it also changed the way I felt about myself on a personal level, in that I have more confidence in asking musicians if they would play with me.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So because I had to have a quintet every Friday night, not everybody can make it every Friday night. And so I would have a different piano player or a different bass player. I had 3 drummers that I was, revolving around, and I was just amazed. Like, I would ask them to play and they would say yes. They'd play for me. And I was like, that changed my life. So all these really positive things came from this experience. And then March 13th of 2020, boom,
5 years. My God, it's 5 years. That's crazy that it's only been it's been 5 years. It doesn't feel like.
Yeah. And it's like 5 years just last week, right?
Right. Yeah. That's
Today's
Thursday.
the 20th. Yeah. So a week ago and 5 years ago, it was March 13th, and you just never forget that kind of stuff, because
It was a Friday.
yeah, Friday the 13th, and it shut everything down. Everybody, I mean, I work a day job, so I didn't lose my entire career, but most musicians that I knew lost so much income. The restaurateurs that I know, everybody. I mean, it was just life changing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, all right, while you were playing there, you started doing your own songs live there. Is that how the album began?
Well, interestingly enough, I had started writing music that kind of put me in the mood of hard bop in a hotel. I was doing a lot of people watching. I was, watching people meet each other in the hotel and go off and do stuff, or, they would have events at the hotel. People, really come in for that, and I'd watch the crowd, and there was a vibe to it, and the hard bop music fit that vibe really well. And so I wrote a couple of fragments of songs that reminded me of that. But it wasn't until COVID hit that I really started composing more and more of that music. I didn't worry so much about if anybody was going to hear this music or not. I was just trying to write music that reminded me of being at the hotel.
Mhm.
And within 4 months, my wife and I, we basically shut ourselves in the house for months, right? Just like everybody did. And she really wanted me to get busy working on something rather than watching Netflix on the couch. And so we got into the habit of, she's sewing on her quilts and I'm at my computer doing my music, and we're working together on our own projects. And within 4 or 5 months, I had what looked like almost an album, of music. And that's when I met the vocalist, Matt Krieg. Oddly enough, it was the same mutual friend who introduced me to Will Rogers of The Last Hotel. That same friend, his name is Mark Beatty, he introduced me to Matt Krieg, who is a vocalist in our band. I met Matt. We talked a lot. We had coffee one day, talked a lot about music and St. Louis and jazz. And we both agreed on jazz vocalists that we didn't like and jazz vocalists that we did like. and that was kind of a big changed for me. I started writing lyrics for all the songs with Matt in mind. Um, and then he said he'd be willing, to sing these lyrics to my music. And so that's when we started putting the album together, and I knew I had something really special.
There you go. So yeah, you finished the album. How does it okay? How much of the story are you willing to give away? Because it's you said thematically that that's going to be a recurring thing. There is a story. It's a jazz opera, not a rock opera. It's a jazz opera, I guess.
Yeah, it tells a story about life in a hotel, from the viewpoint of the staff, mostly the owner. It's a fictitious story, but it's something that happens to every business owner. They face a hard time, and they have to make a decision, um, and they make a decision that changes their business for the positive, and then it's a happy ending, and that's the story arc of Live at the Last Hotel. Side one is day in the life kind of music. The song called "The Lobby," and it tells the story of about the lobby of the last hotel and how great it is. And there's a song about meeting friends, and then there's some instrumental songs. There's a song about me trying to cross the freaking street, trying to get to the gig, and it's called Traffic Both Ways. And I'm trying to cross the street without killing myself, and because I'm thinking about everything else but crossing the street. And then the second side of the album is the story of how the owner is faced with a dilemma and how he gets out of the dilemma. He's inspired by the first robin of springtime. He hires a chef who comes in and starts up the restaurant, and it totally catches on and saves
Saves
the
the day.
hotel.
Right,
Um,
saves the day there. So
yeah,
so you have this. It's fantastic story. You're like, or you sitting around thinking, all right, what do I do with it next? How do we
yeah,
end up?
yeah. Well, when you make an album and you're mixing it, right? You're listening to it over and over, and because the engineer was mixing it, and he would give me listening assignments, and he would want to know about mixing, if I needed a different mix on the drums or the bass. And so I was listening to the material over and over and over after it was recorded, and I would start to kind of have dreams where the music is playing and I'm seeing movement, I'm seeing something, but I really couldn't figure out what it was. But you know, I I I called a friend of mine and I said, I think this album is more than just an album of music. I think there's a story in it, and I think it maybe is a dance or a play or a movie or something. And he said, well, um, you can tell a lot of story through dance, and I know a choreographer who teaches at Washington University, and so he gave me his name, and I reached out to him. His name is Cecil Slaughter. He's the head of the dance program at Washington University,
Great
and
name. Great name.
yeah, see, it is Cecil Slaughter. Um, Cecil loved the music and agreed with me that there was movement in the music, and so he had his students choreograph one of the songs, and they did it in their April uh, spring show, and that was in 2022. Um, and we both thought that went well, and that we'd maybe want to try the whole album. Um, and that's when I got a Instagram message from Maria Majors. She had seen my picture in the paper, um, and found the music on Spotify and was very inspired. She runs a tap dancing um, organization, and she heard a lot of tap dance and a lot of other movement. in it. And so the three of us got together and we decided we were going to put the live band on stage and dancers dancing to every song, choreograph every song, and we'll do the whole album intact, start to finish. And so in October of 2023, we did that.
Well, a lot of work goes into that, I guess, and a lot of I mean, I guess that's a lot of money. Did you get a grant to do it, or?
We were able to get a grant from the Regional Arts Commission here in St. Louis. It was mostly a labor of love. The grant was only a fraction of what the true cost of it was.
Everyone's time and
Yeah, especially the dance. I mean, the dancers and the musicians in the band. We did weekly rehearsals for quite some time, but it was really the dancers doing all of the choreography and learning the choreography. It took all summer for them. And after doing all that work, we put it out on the stage at a performing arts center here in St. Louis, and it was quite an experience. In fact, there's a little documentary online that shows that. It's a very short.
Apparently, someone watched it.
Yeah, yeah. I met a person and was telling him the story, and he decided he had to make a documentary about how it all came together, and so it is out there on YouTube.
Right now, is this something that will ever appear again, or is it just too big of a production with where you are?
So that particular production was such a big deal, and Maria and Cecil, they both are running programs and doing multiple shows a year, and we all loved it, but it was determined that we probably weren't going to be able to do it again.
Right.
Now, since then, I've been writing a treatment of the story, and I'm currently looking to collaborate with a screenwriter or a playwright to write a musical. And so I'm just putting that out there to the
world,
to the internet community, that I would love to collaborate. I do not want to spend my time trying to learn how to write a script.
Right.
I know that it has a story potential, and I would love to see it either as a musical on stage or I could see it being like a 8-part Netflix musical. Once again, I don't think there's anything like it. I mean, there's Babylon that was on Netflix. That was pretty racy. This is not. This could be. I don't know. This could be racy. I don't know. But the premise is there. Like, the music is great. I mean, I'm not just saying it. Like, people have told me this, so I trust them. Which is something that I never would have done before, and now that just came right out of my mouth really easily.
No, that's a good thing. So you have that path. We're gonna find you a playwright. I think I could see just from my limited exposure to it, a musical type of thing, definitely, because I feel like you could create the period, around it kind of better than I don't know.
Yeah.
But your other path was that
Yeah.
you do interpretations of pop, rock. I know. We'll start off. You did one with Ricky Lee and Joni Mitchell, and you've also done a Steely Dan, and then we'll end up with the big one that I guess some people tuned in about, that I've been pushing the headline.
Sure.
But so what prompted you to say, okay, on the other side, I've done Horace Silver, I've done Wayne Shorter, let me do something pop that's different than what people would expect from me?
Yeah. Well, I had been talking to Matt, the singer, and saying, jazz has, a lot of times in the past, jazz musicians would take show tunes and they would cover them. They'd reimagine songs from
Miles.
musicals and
Right.
pop music, and um, he and I both shared a love of Steely Dan, and so we came up with our 16 favorite Steely Dan songs that we thought we could pull off. And what we what we did to approach it is, obviously we've got one vocalist, and that's Matt, and Matt sings like Frank Sinatra or some kind of laid back, raw but real voice, not a highly produced Donald Fagen voice. So he's not going to try to sound like Donald Fagen singing Steely Dan. He's going to sound like Matt Krieg singing in his way. And so I would arrange the horns to be the backup vocal mesh that he could then sing and blend with. And with that happening, then you hear bass and piano and drums like covering the rest of the material, the rest of the territory, I guess, is managed by those, very few instruments. And so this doesn't sound anything like the Steely Dan records.
No guitar.
No guitar.
So that jumps out at me that there was no guitar in it, because I mean, people think of Steely Dan as polished studio jazz kind of thing, but the guitar is what carried a lot of it.
There's so much great guitar work in every single one of their albums has great guitar solos, right? For a while, Walter Becker was playing them, and Skunk Baxter and Denny Diaz, and Larry Carlton later on.
Yeah. Probably the greatest solo ever is in Kid Charlemagne.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I love all that. And, especially looking at the album Asia, and knowing that this special sound they got is just unachievable. I just decided that, let's not even go there, man. Let's do it our way. Let's make it sound like hard bop jazz, but let's present it, Matt's going to sing, and we're going to do the verses and the chorus, and we're going to put solos in it. But it's going to sound like Horace Silver would have played it back in the 60s, in fact, it's like, let's go into a time machine with the Steely Dan music book and hand it to Horace Silver, and you just set it on Horace Silver's piano and leave, and then see what happens.
I felt like when I first started, when I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't know what all 16 songs you ended up doing or what the whole set list is. I haven't seen that, but I was like, Pretzel Logic, definitely the stuff on there would fall into what you guys were doing already, because at that point, Steely Dan's mindset was kind of more there than what we ended up with on Aja.
That's funny. Like Parker's band, I think, is on there, and
St. Eastloo Toodaloo.
Yeah, exactly. Ironically, we didn't play those songs, which
of course not.
Well, but it's funny because putting these shows together, these thematic shows, is like really difficult to choose from all of these great songs. And there were so many on Pretzel Logic that I loved. In fact, the one that didn't make it that I love so much is it's the slow bluesy one. Can't think of what it's called. I'm spacing the name, but just I love all the every single Steely Dan album is a gem. And we were like, well, what's the one song you want to do from that album? It's really tough.
Right. I hear you. And, and there is a huge difference between a Do It Again and Hey 19. I mean, that 8-year period, they covered so much ground. That's fantastic. So was that the first time you ever did that, or was the Ricky Lee Jones, Joni Mitchell came next?
Yes. Steely Dan came first. It was like in September of 2023, I think. And then November, we did the Joni Mitchell, Ricky Lee Jones show. Now, up to that point, we had already tried Grateful Dead twice. So I got to sneak that in there, that the Grateful Dead was kind of the first thing that we wanted to try. And we did one show. It was okay. I mean, it was sold out, and people came out for it. But what we really were missing was a piano player that really knew Grateful Dead. Now, the piano player we had used, his name's Jesse Gannon, and he's amazing, and he's plays with me most of the time. But he's like, man, I really don't connect with Grateful Dead music. I think you should find another guy, to do the piano in that group, And I just went out on Facebook and I said, hey, jazz piano players, have you ever checked out Grateful Dead music? It's an opportunity. That's all I said, and somebody tagged their friend Patrick McClelland, and Patrick messaged me on Facebook and said, I don't know what you're looking for, but I'm sure I can do it. And so Patrick McClelland became the man, and he's the quarterback of the band. He played with Gent Treadley out on the East Coast. So I can't really say all this right, but Gent Treadley was the Vince Welnick Grateful Dead band.
Right.
So Patrick played with that unit for like 8 years, 10 years out in, the New York area. Patrick is like this encyclopedia of Grateful Dead. And he became the piano player, and he's amazing. He'll be like, I'll say, well, what do you think if we play Sugar Magnolia? And he's like, well, do you want it like 77 Sugar Magnolia, or like, do you want it like 84 Sugar Magnolia?
Hopped up on Coke in the early 80s. Sugar
like, how do you want? Yeah, like which one, which era, which, and he's an encyclopedia of all the performances. And so, blending Patrick's skills with the other guys in the band is really been amazing to do. And I really think that the first show we did with Patrick was in I guess that was 2023. It was just before the Steely dance show. We did that Grateful Dead show with Patrick, and that's when I started to feel like, hey, we could be really good at this Grateful Dead music, and it's really a good fit for me personally. I like writing the hard bop language into it, and I love playing the music, and Patrick's really good at it, and he can show us all how to do it, and that's really what happened. And we played this last in January was our third time with Patrick, and instead of playing at like stuffy jazz clubs, we played at this big, it's called Old Rock House. It's a big rock and roll venue, and actual like Grateful Dead fans came out, and we packed the place. And I really was like amazed at the show, and that's why I've decided to put an album out.
There you go. How when you're doing the arrangements for these songs, how do you balance staying true to the hard bop thing, but also staying true to the many diverse elements in the Grateful Dead's catalog?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's kind of evolved. But the thing I'm doing, I've listened to a lot of versions of a song, and I'll listen to a lot of the Jerry Garcia language. And we don't have a Jerry.
Right.
We just have piano, bass, drums, saxophone, and trombone. And so I try to capture some of Jerry's language in the in the riffs that I'll have the horns play.
Right.
And I'll listen to what the rhythm guitar that Bob Weir plays, and I'll kind of, listen to the texture of what Bobby does on rhythm guitar, and I'll try and write that into a two horn part,
Okay.
And so it's propelling the music just like Bobby and Jerry are. And of course, my bass player had never heard of Phil Lesh. Um, you know, so he's got his own approach. I don't even tell him what to do.
Right.
I just give him the chord changes, and
That's
so
beautiful. I love that.
yeah,
That's so Grateful Dead. That is so.
right. It's just like how they would approach it. I think
I love
um, and it just really comes together nicely. It's always a big surprise. We just went into the studio and recorded Terrabin Station,
it.
and I haven't heard the mix yet, but I can't wait because I want to hear if it works or not.
Right. Now, did we go Terrapin what they did live, or did you do the whole side of the album?
Just what they did live this time, but I do want to do the rest in the next session. But we get free studio time at Webster University to be the talent for the classes that are studying audio production. So we go in for only 2 hours, and in that 2 hours time, this last instance, we were only able to do 3 takes of Terrapin, and then class was over. So I want to go back next time. I haven't arranged it yet, but I do want to arrange the remainder. But we did just do Lady with the Fan and Terrapin Station.
Nice. Do certain songs, Grateful Dead songs, suggest themselves to you? I mean, obviously that second side already had horns on it. Weather Report Suite, the first part, has a flute on it from Wake of the Flood. Did any of that go into considerations for what to play?
Yeah, I talked with Patrick about this a lot. When I was in college, and I had this friend, his name's Joe Heisler. He passed away a few years ago, but he was instrumental in teaching me about Grateful Dead, and he played a lot of the prog rock stuff, like Blues for Allah and
Help Slip.
Help Slip, Wake of the Flood stuff.
Unbroken Chain was kind of prog, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
Structured, very structured.
Yes. So on this album, on the CD version of the album, it only has 13 of the songs, but in the digital streaming version of the album we're putting out, Patrick and I did a duet of Unbroken Chain.
Okay. Nice.
And I'm sorry. No, yeah. Unbroken Chain. The last show previously, so we do a duet every show. And I'm getting mixed up, but we did Let It Grow.
Okay.
We did a duet of Let It Grow. This last time we did Unbroken Chain, because I love that stuff. We're always challenged with enough time for the band to learn the material. And so we have so much we want to do and just haven't gotten there yet. But I really think when I hear a lot of the progressive stuff, I think jazz when I hear those things. But then there's also the other songs like Deal and
the
New
blues, the St. Louis blues thing.
And there's
and all that.
Right. There's blues songs, there's New Speedway, New Speedway Boogie and Cumberland Blues. There's all these blues songs that they did. And so I'm really attracted to those too.
How much, when you're charting out something like Slipknot, do you leave room for improvisation, or do you say we're going to do it more true to the album?
We have sections that we set aside for group improvisation or single solo improvisation. We definitely build that in, and but we also are cognizant of the fact that like Help Slip is long, and you know, it if we gave everybody a solo in every part of that epic, it could get really long.
45 minutes later.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things that was part of my original mission was I want this to be enjoyable for the audience, and sometimes it's just a hard thing to balance. You want them to enjoy it, but if it's too long, they're going to get tired. And
Right.
no matter how long they think they can stand there and listen, they're getting tired.
Right.
And I try to be at least considerate of that.
Right. And there are people out there covering that space of like Jazz is Dead. They want to play for a half hour. You go see them, you're going to expect everybody to take 3 solos during a song. Have you ever heard of a guy named Joe Gallant and a band called Illuminati?
No, I haven't.
Joe Gallant and Illuminati, look him up. He did 2 albums back in the 90s. One of them was Blues for Allah, and one of them was Terrapin Station, and he did it for big band, like a full band with like French horns.
Oh my God.
Guitars. The no guitars thing is what made me think about it, because he didn't have a guitar either. Yeah.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, neat stuff. The Blues for Allah thing's pretty crazy. I got to see him a few times. I guess it was the late 90s, because it was after Jerry was done, when we had that surge in the late 90s of people doing projects and thus and such.
That's so cool.
So where
I
are
just, I just want to break in and say that the score of the game is KU 26 and Arkansas 25.
Oh, it's a tight one. It's a tight one. We'll get everybody to that quickly enough. So you said June the album's coming out. We'll put a link so people pre-order this, or is
yes. It's available through the DistroKid on all the platforms, and they can pre-order it. And they can hear all of our other stuff on all the platforms too.
Do you do Bandcamp?
Should I?
Yeah, because people can, even if you put something up there and didn't charge, people can still throw you a couple bucks.
So I kind of wondered about, there's 2 that I haven't done. Well, I have them there. I have our stuff there on SoundCloud and Bandcamp, but I never go there to tend to it. Like I planted a garden and then I walked away. I never water it.
Right.
I don't really know what I'm doing out there on either of those platforms, and I kind of want to learn about how to manage that.
I saw on your website you had you could 99 cents for the download of the album or whatever. It's basically that same setup there. You can set a price where you can say whatever, you can have the album for free, but if you want, you can give, and people will usually throw you $5 or something like that. If they're interested enough to go there and to listen to it, it's like a bartender. Somebody walks up to a bar, you're going to sell them a drink, as opposed to being a server where you're like, do you want a drink? No. Okay. Do you want an appetizer?
Well, I should go check out what I've put out there and see if I put everything out there or not. And I'm not sure if it's distributed through DistroKid, if I can also post it separately.
It'll go directly there, right? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a musician. I just am a big champion of it. Even it's been bought out by private equity, but it still seems to be doing good work like it was before.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'm glad you mentioned it. Thanks.
When are we what are the dates? You got any dates coming up? When can people see you?
Yeah, we're gonna play here in St. Louis on May 23rd. It's a Friday night, and we're doing the Grateful Dead jazz interpretations of Grateful Dead at Old Rock House again. And I had so many people saying, "Oh, I missed your show. How was it?" And they're actually, now they're saying, "I heard your show was great. I'm coming to the next one."
Right.
So,
have you thought about streaming it onto your channel on YouTube?
I have not. However, there's a radio station. It's an internet radio station called Roots FM.
Okay.
And they're here in St. Louis, and they want to get involved in this show. And I'm going to ask them if they ever do live streaming. Right. And then maybe they could handle that. for me. I'm not very modern with like when you said, "Are you going to live stream it?" I was like, I know what that is, but
Well, basically, I mean, in the easiest configuration, you get an old iPhone, you tape it to the front of the soundboard, you shoot it at the band, yeah, and you run the audio from the soundboard and the picture
oh,
into the internet.
okay. And it
And
would, I don't know how it would sound, but like there I go again, like worrying about
well,
sound
what
quality.
what you're going to get is the monitor mix.
Okay. Okay. Well,
So
yeah.
it depends on if you like sometimes I watched something from Nectar's the other night and they didn't have the guitars in the monitor mix because the guitars had amps on stage. So they didn't
Okay.
need them in the room. So when you were listening to it, the guitars were a lot quieter than the organ and the drum and the bass.
So if if I advertise, let's get into let's discuss this. If I advertise that I'm going to live stream this show, am I still going to sell tickets? Are people still going to come to the
Well,
show?
you wait until right before and say we're going to do a live stream because we've sold so many tickets.
Ah,
Demand is so
okay.
high.
Okay, I
You got
got
to
you.
put on
So
your PT Barnum hat there. And
I see. So it's definitely something that I don't do from the get go,
right,
right?
yeah. Fish always waits till the week before to announce they're going to do live streams, even though we all know they're going to do a live stream. But
Ah, okay. Like
but
on
yeah,
Nugs, right?
that's right.
Nugs
Yeah.
TV. Yeah.
So
Um,
you get as many people to buy tickets as you want. You do have merch off your site, right? You can go there and get. Uh,
um, that's another thing I need to kind
I
of
saw you had a Hard Bop Messenger shirt.
yeah, like we had those made for friends, and we don't sell them, but
Right.
I I would, if I had enough people that like if people out there want them, I could have them made and I could sell them.
Well, what you do is they have places that do print on demand. So basically,
Oh,
person goes there, pays their $25, the company prints the shirt, mails it to them, and then gives you the difference of whatever minus
really?
there's yes.
I had no idea. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
so it's just printed. That's what we do with. I have another YouTube channel, Look Plus, and people just can go buy stuff. They print it, and we'll get like $3 shows up in our account or
Oh my
whatever we
gosh.
made off the shirt. So
I had no idea. So I didn't know they had that, but I want to do that because, yeah, the Live at the Last Hotel shirt is really a knockout shirt.
Yeah,
Um,
God
and
Street Wine. My buddies in God Street Wine do it. I'll find out exactly the company that they use. Ours is connected to the website we
okay,
use, so it's just something that came with whatever. I'm not that part. I'm like you. I know this stuff exists, but the inner workings of it.
well, it's good to know that there is like print on demand for T-shirts because I've
Yeah,
thought about that before, but I didn't like pursue it. The artwork for this album, I gotta show off this artwork.
nice.
My artist, his name is Will Horton, and he does all the art for Hard Bop Messengers stuff. And I would love to see that on a shirt.
Yeah,
Um, so that's a really cool thing to think about. Thanks
yeah.
for mentioning that.
Hey, I'm here to help. I want to see every band that comes on here knock
Yeah,
it out of the park and become the next big thing.
I appreciate that. I don't know. Talking about merchandise, do people buy CDs anymore? I mean, I had them made for the
Yeah,
radio
some people
promotion.
do.
Really?
I mean, most people buy LPs because it's retro and it's hipster and it's, kind of thing.
Well,
But I've heard quite a few bands recently say that they're putting releases out on CDs because it's cheaper than doing an album.
right. Well, I've got 300 LPs of Live at the Last Hotel in a box right over there, and I would love
And
to.
Bandcamp, see, on Bandcamp, you can sell physical copies too. People can
Oh,
buy it
okay.
on Bandcamp and then you just have to mail it to them.
Oh, right on. Well,
So,
I could do that because yeah, I've got LP records. They're 150-gram vinyl,
nice.
and they sound really great. Of Live at the Last Hotel, and yeah, I would love to.
Colored vinyl is the worst. I think all bands should be taken out back and whooped if they put out colored vinyl. It never sounds good. I think it just there's something that with how they make it that I don't know. It
Yeah,
doesn't sound.
I don't. I've never done a side by side, but does it sound different?
Yeah, I feel like it. It's thinner. It's not, the material isn't good. There's a
Oh,
thick,
okay.
a 150, a 180 even, something that you could bust over someone's head and it would crack into several pieces.
Right on. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put some links down on the bottom. In the future, we'll have to try to catch up again as you go and do this. I hope that maybe someday someone can pick you up and you can take it on the road. I think New York would love what you do if you
Well,
could get yourself there.
I would love to play out in the East Coast. We'd love to do festivals. We'd love to play big venues. Anything that would make sense economically for us to get there, we
Right.
would we would love to go play.
Right.
Because we love playing this music, and what we found out in January is people really dig it.
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank
Hang out for a minute while I run the outro. Everybody out there watching, remember, like, subscribe at All That Jam Pod on all the social places. Plus, we got the .com. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.